On November 10, 1955, the crew of a merchant ship crossing the South Pacific spotted something ahead. A small vessel sat low in the water, tilted hard to one side, drifting with the current. No smoke, no lights, no answer on the radio. They pulled alongside and read the name on the hull: Joyita. 5 weeks earlier, this boat had left port with 25 people on board. A 2-day trip, 270 miles. The boarding party climbed onto the flooded deck and searched the ship. The cargo was gone. The lifeboats were gone. The logbook was gone. In the wheelhouse, the radio was switched on and tuned to the International Distress Channel, and it had been transmitting into the ocean on a broken antenna for over a month. 25 men, women, and children had vanished from a boat that could not sink. Not one of them was ever found. This is the case of the Joyita. Investigators called it the Mary Celeste of the Pacific, and 70 years later, the official inquiry's final word still stands: inexplicable. Let's start with the boat, because the boat is the mystery. Joyita was built in 1931 as a luxury yacht for a Hollywood movie director. Her name means Little Jewel in Spanish. During the war, the U.S. Navy took her as a patrol boat and lined her hull with cork. Remember that detail. It matters more than anything else in this story. A cork-lined hull meant that even fully flooded, Joyita would float. She was, in practical terms, unsinkable. By 1955, she worked as a trading and fishing vessel out of Samoa. Her captain was Thomas Miller, a British sailor everyone called Dusty. Miller knew the cork was there. He had told people more than once that whatever happened, the safest place in the ocean was Joyita's deck. Hold that thought against everything that follows. On October 3, 1955, Joyita left the port of Apia in Samoa, heading for the Tokelau Islands. 270 miles, 41 hours, maybe 48. On board, 16 crew and 9 passengers, including a government official, a doctor, 2 children, and cargo of medical supplies, timber, food, and empty oil drums. The trip started badly. One engine had a failed clutch, and Miller left port on a single engine hours late at night. Port authorities in Tokelau expected the boat on October 5th. It never arrived. Here is the first strange fact. No distress signal was ever received. Not in Samoa, not in Fiji, not anywhere. A search operation covered nearly 250,000 square miles of ocean over 6 days. Planes, ships, nothing. Joyita had dissolved into the Pacific. For 5 weeks, nothing. Then, on November 10th, the merchant ship Tuvalu stumbled onto her, drifting 600 miles west of her route, north of Fiji. And the condition of the boat turned a disappearance into a puzzle that has never been solved. Joyita was flooded and listing hard to port, but afloat. Of course she was afloat. The cork held exactly as designed. The partial flooding had a cause. Below the waterline in the engine room, investigators found a corroded pipe in the cooling system. A slow, fixable leak. The kind of failure that gives a crew hours, not seconds. Now the deck. Both engines were down. Someone had draped mattresses over the starboard engine, possibly trying to plug the leak or protect the machinery. An improvised awning had been rigged on deck, which means people were alive, working, solving problems. The ship's clocks had stopped at 10:25 when the flooding reached the generator and killed the power. The barnacle line on the hull told investigators the boat had been heeled over for weeks. Then the things that were missing. All 3 life rafts gone. The logbook gone. The sextant and navigation gear gone. 4 tons of cargo gone. And the 25 people gone. But one object was still there, sitting on the deck, and it disturbed the investigators more than all the absences combined. A doctor's bag, open. Inside, a scalpel, needles, and lengths of blood-stained bandages. Someone on that boat had been badly hurt. The doctor had treated them on deck. And then, in the middle of that treatment, in the middle of that repair work, 25 people left an unsinkable ship for rubber rafts in open ocean. Ask any sailor what that means. You do not step off a floating vessel into a raft. Ever. The sea has one iron rule. The ship is life. The water is death. Captain Miller preached that rule about this exact boat. For every soul on board to leave, either Miller gave an order that contradicted everything he believed, or Miller was no longer in command, or no longer alive. The radio deepened the problem. The dial in the wheelhouse was set to 2,182 kilohertz, the international distress frequency. Someone had called for help, but when investigators traced the wiring, they found a corroded break in the antenna cable. The set looked alive. It transmitted almost nothing. The signal's real range was about 2 miles. Whoever sat at that radio, sending mayday after mayday into the static, never knew that nobody could hear them. The ocean around them was silent because the cry for help died 2 miles out. The official inquiry in Fiji did what officials do. It established that the ship was poorly maintained, that the port engine was down before departure, that the pipe corroded, that the pump failed. It criticized Captain Miller's decision to sail, and on the only question that mattered, the fate of 25 people, it wrote one sentence that ended the investigation and started the legend. The passengers' and crew's disappearance was, quote, inexplicable. No bodies, no wreckage from the rafts, no drifting debris. 25 people, including 2 children, erased. So what are the theories? The most sober one goes like this. The pipe leaks. The pump fails. Water rises in the dark. The crew cannot find the source. On one engine at night, the flooding feels like sinking. Miller is injured somehow, maybe in a fall, maybe in a fight with his first mate, an American named Chuck Simpson with whom relations were tense. That explains the bandages. With the captain down, the one man who knew about the cork goes silent. Panic wins. They launched the rafts at 10:25 when the lights die, and the ocean takes them one by one. The boat they abandon refuses to sink and drifts for 5 weeks as their floating tombstone. It is a clean theory. It has a problem at its center. 25 people on a calm trade route do not all fit in 3 small rafts with 4 tons of cargo. And the cargo is the detail the panic theory cannot digest. Frightened people fleeing a sinking ship do not stop to unload 4 tons of timber and copra. Someone took that cargo, and rafts do not carry it. So the second family of theories, someone else was there. In 1955, rumors in the islands pointed at Japanese fishing fleets operating in the area, and darker wartime ghosts, piracy, robbery of the cargo, disposal of the witnesses. The Fiji Times printed the theory. Officials denied it. No evidence ever surfaced, no cargo was ever traced, and the accusation faded into the general noise of the 50s. But it never quite died because it explains the 2 facts the official version cannot: the missing cargo and the missing bodies. And then the third layer, the one that keeps this case alive at 2 in the morning. Some researchers noted that the ship's papers and log vanished, which is what you remove when you want a voyage to become unreadable. Some pointed at insurance, some at mutiny. One writer spent years on the case and concluded the answer was simple: human tragedy, injury, and panic. Another spent years and concluded we were never told the truth. 70 years of books, and the needle still points to inexplicable. Joyita herself refused to disappear. She was salvaged, repaired, sold. She ran aground. She was sold again. She ran aground again. Sailors in the islands started calling her cursed, and by the late 60s, no one would crew her. The unsinkable boat that outlived 25 of her people ended as a hulk, stripped for parts on a beach. Her story outlived her hull. Here is what we are left with. A boat that could not sink, abandoned by people who knew it could not sink. A radio crying for help with a 2-mile voice. Clocks frozen at 10:25. A doctor's open bag with bloody bandages waiting on deck for a patient who was no longer there. And 25 names, including a 3-year-old and an 11-year-old that the Pacific swallowed without returning so much as a shoe. The sea keeps secrets, but it usually returns something: a raft, a body, a crate. From Joyita, in 70 years, it has returned nothing at all. That is either the worst luck in maritime history or proof that the story we know is not the story that happened. What is your verdict? Panic on a dark, flooded deck? Or someone else on that boat? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe, because the next case leaves the ocean and goes back into the mountains. In 1993, 6 experienced hikers died on a Siberian ridge in a matter of minutes. One girl survived, and her account of those minutes is the reason the case is still open. That file is next.